Hi everyone, this is a tutorial to demonstrate how to work a section of inlay knitting when you're working in the round. So as you can see here, I'm working on circular needles. I'm working this yoke in the round, and I have at the front this panel of inlay knitting. So I'm knitting with my main colour, but when I reach this section that's marked here with these markers, I've got some inlay knitting. Now, as you can see, inlay knitting creates these strands of a contrast colour that's on the front of your work. It can be worked with just a single strand. Here I'm working with two strands held together. I'm going to show you how to deal with these strands when you're working in the round. Okay, so I'm just going to knit to the point where I need to start my inlay knitting. And then I'll show you how to work this. So for this round, my strands are at this end of the panel. So it's a simple case of moving these strands to the front of the work where I want to see the floats on the right side. So I'm going to knit one more. And then I want my contrast colour to come to the front of my work. And I'm going to knit two. Now here what's really important is you want to make sure that your main colour comes over the top of this contrast colour. That traps those floats underneath the row that you're currently working on your needles. So I'll knit another one, and then I want those strands to move back to the back of my work. I'm going to continue knitting, again making sure that my main colour comes over the top of that contrast colour. And then I need to do some more inlay knitting here, so I'm going to bring my strands back to the front again. And I'm going to knit two more. Again, making sure my main colour every time is coming over the top of that contrast colour. So at this point, I'm going to continue knitting with my main colour. I've finished the inlay knitting for this round. You don't need to carry your contrast colour with you all the way around here. You leave it at the end of where you've just worked that inlay, and you just continue knitting with main colour. Then on the next round, I'll show you how to deal with the fact that this contrast colour is now at the wrong end of your work. Okay, so I've knit all the way around until I've nearly reached the point where I need to start my inlay knitting again. Now, as you can see, the problem that we have on this round is that this contrast colour yarn is now at the other end of your inlay knitting panel. Now, one option obviously would be just to bring the contrast colour all the way back here and start with the same process of inlay knitting again. The problem with that is that you end up with very long floats on the wrong side. So this is a better alternative, and I really like doing this. It feels a bit like a magic trick. So I'm at the point where I'm ready to start my inlay knitting. What I'm going to do here is bring my contrast colour from the point where it's attached at the wrong side of my work round to the front in a big loop and in between my needles round to the back. This is the first stitch where I need to work my inlay knitting. So from here, this end of contrast colour is attached to the ball of yarn. This end is attached to the wrong side of my work. So you can see I've got a big loop on the right side of the work. So then I'm going to work my first inlay knitting stitch, making sure my main colour comes over the top of that contrast colour. Then I'm going to move that loop to the back of the work. So there you can see I've created my first inlay knitting stitch. I'm then just going to knit as normal until I reach the next section where I need to do some inlay knitting. Okay, I've reached that point. So then I bring that loop that I've created back to the front of the work. Whoops. There we go. And I knit the stitches I need to knit that have this inlay feature. Take that loop back to the back again. I'm going to continue working my inlay pattern, but this time using this loop of yarn. I've got one more stitch to do right at the end of this panel. Okay, and I'll find that loop again, bring it to the right side, knit that last stitch, and put that contrast yarn to the back. I'm just going to slip my marker and knit a couple of stitches to secure that last bit, and then I'll show you the fun bit. Okay, so I've worked that next row of inlay knitting. I've got a bit of extra loop left over. So all you do at this point is you pull on the tail of your contrast colour like this, and it will you pull until that loop disappears, and then you just make sure that you've got enough slack on the right side of those stitches. Okay, and what that means now is that for the next round, your contrast colour is back at the start of this panel, so you can work the inlay knitting as normal in this direction, and then on the following round you do the loop that I've just shown you and almost kind of work it in reverse. Okay, and that is how you work inlay knitting, a panel of inlay knitting whilst also working in the round. Okay, I hope that helps.